if you look at the innovation that is happening in the financial services sector in India and overall, the surprising thing is that most of it has been driven by transformation that the government has driven. So I think if you look at Aadhaar, if you look at UPI, if you look at the new digital lockers, if you look at the new data consent architecture, a lot of it has actually driven the innovation in financial services, where you're seeing the proliferation of new non-banking entities, where you're seeing an expansion in consumer credit, where you're seeing a lot of fintechs coming up. So I think the government has played a significant role on the technology side. I also think the government is playing a fairly significant role in terms of new business models. So if you look at the payment bank architecture, for instance, it is a remarkable innovation in a country where historically you've had very large public sector banks, essentially savings and loans type of organizations. So this is where we see the innovation and the change happening.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities. I think Mr. Mishra has touched upon quite a few interesting points. I think I'm going to say something controversial here, but India traditionally brings out reforms only when there's a crisis. And some of these crises are self-created because every time it's doing well, we find something or the other that happens which basically puts fear back into the market and capital vanishes. First of all, I feel that the regulators and the government have to have a collaborative approach with the markets. I think there's a deep-seated fear that international money is bad. They do not allow several instruments. And when they have allowed instruments, there's a start-stop approach.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could approach this question of transformation from two different angles. One is, and at the risk of taking this really broadly, it's almost, it's almost like a philosophical approach, right? It's basically, what kind of approach, what kind of mindset do you take to questions like what is the appropriate risk, the appropriate balance between sort of, financial sector dynamism and financial sector stability, right? I'll come back to that in a second. The other approach that you could take is say, oh, well, when you look at transformation, we need to be looking at not just some of the issues which are, very familiar, still very important, but have been quite, long-standing issues in the Indian financial sector. But, as you said, we need to look at some of these questions which are the issues of the future, right? So fintech, which you mentioned, is something that links the two. One thing that we have been involved with is you may be familiar with the India-UK Financial Partnership. This is something that has been running since 2014. It was started following on from discussions between the then UK Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Indian Finance Minister. And the idea is basically to deepen financial services links and cooperation on a bilateral level between the UK and India.